Mike started his car and drove onto a dark, empty road that led through a dense forest. The quiet countryside and the hooting of owls in the background created an atmosphere of tranquility and solitude. He really needed some time to unwind from the stress that had been haunting him at every turn lately. Mike was a tall, slender young man with blue eyes and short chestnut hair. He was a typical city dweller, but sometimes he strongly wished to escape the hustle and bustle of city life and spend time alone in nature. As he turned deeper into the forest, Mike turned on the radio and let the music drown his thoughts. He steered the wheel and smoothly glided along the winding road. Suddenly, like a ghost from the past, a girl in a white dress appeared before his eyes. Mike slammed on the brakes, and his heart raced. The girl stood in the middle of the road, her hair a pale shade of russet, her eyes gazing into the distance as if she were looking through him. Her dress was stained with mud, and her face bore an expression of fear. "What is she doing here?" Mike thought. He cautiously turned off the radio and began to approach the girl slowly, hoping she needed help. When he was just a few meters away from her, the girl abruptly turned towards him, her eyes filled with terror, and she opened her mouth as if to say something, but no words came out of her lips. Instead, she simply vanished as if she had never been there. Mike stopped, staring at the spot where the girl had been just moments ago. His heart pounded so hard he felt its pulsation in his throat. Fear started to creep over him, and he felt shivers run down his spine. Carefully stepping out of the car, Mike began to inspect the place where the girl had disappeared, but there were no traces of her presence, no footprints on the road, no imprints in the mud. It was as if he had seen a ghost. Fear still gripped Mike as he quickly returned to the car, slamming the door shut. He started the engine and tried to accelerate to leave the place as quickly as possible. But something was wrong. His car began to move slower and slower, as if all its energy had drained away. He tried to restart the engine, but it remained unresponsive. Mike felt panic take hold of him. He got out of the car again and looked around, but this forest seemed eerily quiet and bleak. There were no sounds of nature, no living creatures around. Attempting to keep his composure, Mike took out his mobile phone and tried to call for help, but the signal disappeared, and the screen flickered with strange symbols. He tried to use the flashlight on his phone, but the light went out. Darkness closed in around him, and Mike felt the fear intensify. He began to walk along the road in search of an escape from this nightmare, but it seemed as if the road had no end. After hours of wandering in darkness and emptiness, Mike heard strange sounds, whispers, and rustling in the leaves. He stopped and tried to understand what it was. Suddenly, a figure in a white dress appeared before him again. The girl was standing there once more, her eyes filled with fear, her face expressing desperation. She silently reached out her hand towards Mike, as if asking for help. Mike recoiled, and his legs carried him backward as he started to run away from this horrifying figure. But no matter how much he ran, she was always ahead of him. Fear and despair consumed Mike as he plunged into the bushes, trying to hide from the girl in white. But even there, he could feel her presence closing in. Hours felt like days, and days felt like an eternity as Mike fought for his life, running away from this terrifying apparition. He felt his strength dwindling, growing weaker and weaker. Finally, having exhausted his last reserves of energy, Mike collapsed to the ground, clenching his fists. He knew it was the end, that he could no longer escape. At that very moment, the girl in white approached him and placed her hand on his shoulder. He felt a chilling touch and looked at her. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she spoke in a soft, broken voice. "Help me." The girl led him through the forest, and as they moved forward, Mike began to notice that the forest around them was becoming brighter and more alive. The sounds of nature began to fill the air, and they were moving towards the light. Eventually, they emerged from the forest and found themselves on the road. Mike's car was still there, just as it had been, as if nothing had happened, but the girl in the white dress had disappeared, as if she had never existed. Mike got into his car and started the engine. He felt exhausted, but now he knew that he was not alone in facing this nightmare. He understood that the night in the forest had been extraordinary, that he had experienced something inexplicable and mysterious. Since then, he never returned to that forest. The night he had spent there remained in his memory as a terrifying dream that would never be forgotten, but he also realized that one should not judge people by their appearance, and that sometimes true help can come from those we fear the most.